welcome Jay Abraham to the Rainmaker Retreat. Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure, and that was a very nice build-up, but there's an error. It's the World Bank. It's not President Obama. It's
Gotcha.
the World Bank's
Thank you.
President Council, but still impressive. They're trying to save humanity in the world, so it's a pretty auspicious goal. May I sit?
Please do.
Okay.
Please do. And I got some water for you. If
Oh,
you'd
that's
like.
good. Yeah, I'll trade this for
So,
water. Thank you.
We're going to do a little bit of a Q&A here, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. You have an opportunity in a few minutes to pick his brain about anything related to scaling up your business, growing a multi-million-dollar firm, hiring the right staff, how to compete, how to differentiate yourself from your competition, how to generate more referrals for your law firm. So I want you to put your thinking caps on and really think up some really good questions, because he's going to answer those questions at no charge, and if you want to hire him afterwards, it's a lot of money, all right? So, Jay, let's kind of start off. Tell us a little bit about, now we know that all the people in this room are attorneys.
Okay.
The vast majority of the people in this room they own their own law firm, or they're a partner in their law firm.
All right.
Now, there are a number of different practice areas here. We have people who are personal injury attorneys, estate planning attorneys, criminal defense attorneys, divorce attorneys. We also have commercial litigation attorneys. We have civil litigators, business transactional, intellectual property attorneys. So we got a wide, diverse number of different attorneys in this room.
All right.
So let's start talking about something that is near and dear to your heart, and that's how to generate referrals for professional service firms such as law firms.
Okay. Well, let me start by doing something that's a little bit hokey, but if I were doing a long, large program, I would do this with the group, so I'll do it with you if you'll indulge me. And then I'll explain to you why people pay me a lot of money, because understanding the experiential knowledge that resides in my mind from these industries is very important. But how many in this room, raise your hands, can honestly say that 50%, let's start with 40% or more of your cases, of your business income, however you want to call it, revenue, whatever you categorize it by, emanates from either word of mouth or referral? Raise your hand. Okay, please stand up if you don't mind. I'm not trying to be rude, but I want to make a point. And remain standing. Now, I normally would go around the room and I'd say, okay, what's the percentage and what's the dollar equivalent? Not even extrapolated over residual, repeat, etc. And it's usually quite profound, and it depends on the size of the business. Might be 80%, 800,000, might be 20%, 4 million. But I won't do that with you, but it would be very dramatic and it would be very impactful. But then I say, which I'll say now, remain standing if you have in place in your practice right now at least one formalized, systematized, completely adhered to on a continuous basis referral generating integrated strategy that everyone in the practice adheres to. Stay up if you do. Now, let me make a point.
Nobody's left standing.
Now I'm going to show you, if you go, oh, this guy's probably full of crap, I'm going to show you my hallucinatory delusion. I'm going to delude myself to believe that a referral-generated client, number one, closes easier, number two, negotiates less, number three, pays easier, faster, more, number four, stays longer, depending on what you do, obviously. I mean, maybe you don't get divorced that often. I've been divorced 2 times. But, and is more enjoyable to deal with, and finally refers people to you and costs you whatever legally you happen to want to do, send them a bottle of wine or take them to dinner or none of the above. And yet, most people spend all their time and their money and their efforts trying to go to the cold market, creating trust and creating awareness and migrating that trust and awareness over a slow and a very methodical way to try to get it to commitment when you've already got all this trust that you don't use. And it costs you nothing. So when I was younger, I've been doing this for 40 years. When I first started, I was very young, and we would have huge programs with people that had all kinds of industries, and I got tired of dictating theory, so I'd ask people to come to the mic, and every time we dealt with a scenario like referral, I'd say, okay, if your business generates at least 80% of its revenue, doesn't matter whether it's professional service, product, combination, any kind of nuance therein, come to the mic and share with me in 4 minutes or less the quintessence of what drives your referral strategy, what the key elements are, what it means, what any unique distinctions that you are aware of and you refine, and then project, extrapolate, and adapt or adopt some generalizations to the market. And over the course, we found 93 different referral generating strategies.
93.
Now, I don't delude yourself to think you could do 93 or 63 or 53 or 43 or 33 or not even 23. But if you did 3, and there are ones that are continuous, there are ones that are precipitated by like inflection points. There are ones that are seasonal. There are ones that are just wildly incongruent with whatever you do as a profession, for like taking everybody to a premiere of a movie, or inviting your clients and people they associate with to any kind of activity, event. It could certainly be educational, but we've done so many things in that order that the first thing I tell everybody is, and if you don't get all the referrals you want, you have to question, there's a very interesting discussion I had years ago, and I'm a little ADD, so bear with me. And it was with a dentist who had converted his whole practice to referral-only practice. And we started this dialogue about, if you don't get the referrals you want, but by the way, most people get them organically, and that's, it's good, bad. It's good that people think enough of it, but there's no predictability in it. There's no, it's episodic, it's intermittent, it's feast and famine, and also most nobody has a process to maximize the referral-generated prospect vis-a-vis an externally one, and it's totally different. But the point is, you should all think about this. If your client, and there are ways throughout, and I'm not trying to tease you, I just only have a little time here. There are ways throughout the dialogue, throughout the experience with a client, that you can ethically imbue in them the awareness of what they're getting and how much better their life or their circumstance or how hard you're working, so that they will be prepared. But I'll give you the most blatant, is making a referral a condition of doing business. I'll give you how that, and that's like sublime, but I'll walk you through it, and I'm just giving you a couple of fun little examples. There's all these cool variations, modifications, but if you had the chutzpah, the balls to do this, when somebody comes to you, you say, look, Stephen, give me a case. What's your scenario? What's your specialty?
I'm a divorce attorney.
Okay. Stephen, the world is sad. I wish I could say that there's a very rare incidence of divorce, but in all actuality, if you walk in your neighborhood, walk up or go up the elevator in your building, go to church, the statistical probability is that 1 out of every 1 out of every 2, 3 are going to go through divorce, and many of these are people you know, you love, you care about, and that are important to you. That stated, we have decided that in this practice, it's going to be referral-only practice, and there's a very important reason. Many of our colleagues, very nice men and women, good practitioners, good professionals, spend an enormous amount of their resources and their time externally marketing for new clients. Nothing wrong with that, except it diverts their resources and their time from doing even greater work for the clients. We've decided we want to put all the money and the time, the effort, the capital, the intellectual capital, into doing more for your case to get you a more superior outcome. Now, there's no guarantees in life. There's less in business. Can't promise anything, but what we ask of every client is this. We sit down and we tell you exactly what you can expect before you ever engage us. Do you want me to continue with this?
Please do.
Okay, all right. So number one, you should expect us to deal with you as if you were our family member, my son or daughter, and care about you and your welfare at that rate. Number two, you should expect us to have your best interest far and away ahead of ours, and you should never, ever worry, concern, or equivocate about whether we are ever doing anything for the economic purpose. We will never put money ahead of your best interest. Number three, when you have an issue, you should know that we are going to thoroughly not only deal with it, but we are going to keep you not just apprised, but we are going to comfort you, and we're going to make sure that you have the minimum amount of stress, the maximum amount of clarity, and the abundance of certainty we can give you to the extent that it's certain. Nothing is certain, and in divorce, the outcomes are very varied. But we want you to do this. Throughout the process, we want to be judged on whether we live with what we say, because anytime we don't believe we deserve to retain and keep you as a client. And before you even start, we would urge you, if you're so inclined, and we would be, if we were you, to talk to 4 or 5 or 6 of our clients, some are men, some are women, and ask them how we represented, how we dealt with them, how we communicated with them. And I'm telling you all this because if we do our job, we can't promise you a dollar specific or a child support specific or a custody specific outcome, because there are protocols, but the system is crazy. But if we represent and advocate and champion your case, your life, your future in the way that we know we will, we ask that within 6 months, circumstances deserving, meaning we don't want you to go out and cause marriages to fall apart, but we ask when, and you will, people who are close to you share with you that either their marriage is in jeopardy or in crisis, that you refer them to us, knowing that we will never charge them and we will give them the best reason, best experience, most objective. That's like sublime.
So you've actually had clients that have actually turned their entire practice into referral-based only by using those kind of strategies.
They say, well, I'm uncomfortable. You can say, that's fine, but if you're uncomfortable, we have to charge you a premium.
Interesting. That's a great proposition.
No, but I've done this. I mean, nothing else. I mean, I don't know what I'll talk about in 20 minutes, 10 minutes, but these are not theoretical. We've done this all around the world. It works. But it only works if you believe it. And I'm going back to the essence. But we were talking about the theory of referral. If you don't get the referrals that you want, you have to respect yourself, your distinction, your preeminence. And I know you're in an industry where, where statements are more governed by protocol and by profession, by regulation and stuff like that. But if you don't know how to, I figured out long ago, and my job in the beginning was helping all kinds of other experts and specialists and consultants depict themselves in an incomparable way, elevated and catapulted above their generic competition, so people would see them as the only viable solution, the only trusted advisor. You got to get yourself into that kind of a self-awareness, and you can't have it be arrogant. It can't be brash. It's got to actually be based on humility and humanity, but a true understanding that you are more aware of not just the technical elements and not just the negotiating elements, but the human psychology elements that you have to also serve and address. And I can get into that if you want, but I can go on and on and on and on. But
so one of the struggles that you guys have, we've talked about this over the last couple of days, is how do you differentiate yourself from your competition, right? How many of you struggle with that at least at some level, you feel like it's tough out there to really differentiate yourself at a really core level from your competition. A lot of your prospects, they really don't know how to buy, right? They don't know what a good attorney looks like or a bad attorney. If they knew what a bad attorney looked like, none of them would be in business, right? Because nobody wants to hire an unethical or incompetent attorney. Can we agree on that? Yes? We want to hire ethical, we want to hire competent attorneys, but they don't know how to choose. And part of that comes down to, how do you differentiate yourself on a, I think the word that you like to use is preeminent level,
yes.
right? To be able to differentiate yourself and to show you to be the preeminent attorney. What questions do you guys have related specifically, if you do, about how to differentiate yourself from your competition? Are there any questions out there on that particular topic? All right, so can you give us maybe one tip?
Does that mean nobody wants to differentiate themselves? Why don't I just give you some, I'll give you a stream.
How about you give us a couple tips?
I'll give you a stream. I'm known, I've been doing this a long time, and this is just clinical. I'm known for having created something called the strategy of preeminence, and it's a philosophical strategy or a strategic philosophy, however you want to look at it, that drives and fuels and is the sort of the bedrock and the main thread in the fabric of your distinction. And it's based on a number of elements, and I learned it from a client, so it's not original, but I evolved it. And it usually takes about 2 hours to do this, but I have about 5 hours on it up, and I'll give it to you, and you can give it to them. We have video, audio, talking points, demonstrations, but I'll give you the short version rather than just teasing you. So it's based on, first of all, a genuine, not desire, but commitment to be seen as the most trusted advisor in the category for life, not just for that transaction. So you got a much more holistic and perpetual viewpoint of the relationship, because you want to be there for them and anybody important to them forever, and that goes into the attitude of deserving and the referrals. Second, if you're going to be, and there's a lot of stuff, I haven't done this, and I usually use a cheat sheet or a PowerPoint, so bear with me, but I said I'll give it to you. So if you're going to be seen as the trusted advisor, you have to have viewpoints that convey many different things to them. First is, I feel what you feel. I understand what it's like to be you. And the only way you can understand what it's like to be them is not judge it superficially on the veneer of your own experience with a crying, hot or ugly woman sitting there and you're, getting divorced, or a guy who's basically, ragging on the other spouse. But it's to try to, this man I've 30, 40 people have met me over my life. One of them said, your job is to examine, understand, evaluate, appreciate, and acknowledge what it's like to be them. Because if they can feel that you feel what it's like, that's very powerful. Mm-hmm. Next thing, and I'm not going to be in order because I can't remember, because I don't do this much anymore as far as just explaining it. I just do it sort of, inherently, is you want to put into words what they are feeling and what they are, not just what they are feeling, but what they are trying to get closer to and away from, including projecting backward and forward without purposely hurting them, the pain and the pleasure of what's going to happen. It's called future pacing. But you do it, I'll give you an easy example. When I used to do all these seminars, and we used to have 800-900 people, and they were expensive. We would spend 3 or 4 hours in the beginning. Everyone thought it was crazy, having everyone stand up in a very diverse, heterogeneous audience, explaining the following: the business they were in, how they sold, who they sold to, how they were doing, and what reason brought them here, what their goal was, what their problem was, what their challenge was. Mm-hmm. And it was amazing how abstract and amorphous their answers were. And I used to have a colleague who was, we called him the Bo Jackson. Those of you old enough to remember Bo Jackson, who's like this guy was brilliant. And between he and I, we was trying to say, oh, what you're saying is you are tired of being marginalized. You want to have a strategy that you can easily follow and you can believe in to make yourself distinctively different, to make the market see it, to have, I mean, we just articulate what they wanted in ways no one had ever articulated, and you could see their body structure change, their facial expression change, because now for the first time, this onerous, intimidating, what do you call it? Just this, as I say, amorphous monster has gotten concretized, and they could get their hands around it. And so that's another thing. The next thing is you have to have in your heart and mind a recognition that every time you enter that person's life, even if it's just an update or no update, your responsibility is to make their life better off because you and or your staff were in it. Very important. Next, and this is really important, and it's very easy to get jaded and what's the word? Contemptuous about if you've done it for a while, or when you see the surly underside of humanity, not just in the actions people do, including the actions that your own clients don't tell you about, but the way they don't really respect, so there's like the hooker syndrome. They respect you a lot in the beginning, and then when the bill comes due and the extra hours or the contingency fee, it's very sad what you see, and you can get very jaded and you get very, very annoyed, but you've got to be able to shift your focus and not fall in love with law, although you need to be very passionate about it, and not fall in love with just your reputation, although you should be proud of it and grow it, but you need to fall in love with the clients you serve and the impact you make in their lives and the betterment you bring. An aside, and it's totally different than preeminence, but I'll throw this out because I might have to leave, and I was thinking about it. One of the things we're very good at with clients is what I call dividing and conquering. So you want to differentiate. There's a million ways to differentiate. I mean, literally, not a million, but there's so many different ways, and you can use combinations, separate, you can layer them. But one of the most wonderful ways to differentiate, well, it's three ways. One is to do the polar opposite. So everyone's going to you and they're trying to figure out why they should choose you. And instead, say, with total respect, Mr. Smith, I don't think I have been clear, and I want to be very, very grateful that you're here, but I choose the clients that I serve. And they have to be compatible. I have to feel that we're on the same, and just reverse, I can go on and on and on. That's one thing. But now dividing and conquer. I'm just giving you a bunch of fun ways. I'm all about thinking totally differently than everybody else, and part of the reason people pay me a lot is that I've had this outrageously extensive experience in so many different industries that I understand strategies, mindsets, access vehicles, business models, all kinds of things that it's like the difference, we call it funnel vision versus tunnel vision, because you can borrow and you can integrate all kinds of hybrids from outside. Now back to dividing and conquering. This is a really cool strategy. So people are sitting there, and whether they're verbalizing it or whether it's implicit, explicit, you know they're trying to decide, should I choose you? Should I even do this? Mm-hmm. Blank, blank, blank. So one of the things, and it depends, we have like a lot of arrows in our quiver, but one of the things we've used is this. It's saying, Stephen, I've listened to you and I appreciate everything you've asked, and I also appreciate some of the non-verbalized questions that I know you feel awkward about asking. And I should probably tell you this. In the divorce field in Los Angeles, let's call them up right now. My God, there are 25,865 people. Let's go through. Wow, look, bang, we keep doing it. There's a lot of them you can choose from. I don't know 25,000 of them, but I'm a senior member of the this, and I founded this, and I write articles for this. So I know a lot of them. And they're mostly fine attorneys, and they're almost all good people, good husbands, wives, fathers, mothers. But I have to explain that they address divorce and the relationship with their client in a totally different way, by and large, than we do. And you should understand that we are very proud of the fact that we approach this relationship totally. Then you explain how you're different. And there's everybody else in you. You're not saying they're assholes, but in essence, you're saying they're assholes in a very tasteful way. I can go on and on. You want to hear more, or is that enough?
Good. Let's open it up to questions. So hopefully you've gotten a few stimulating thoughts out here. You have an opportunity of a lifetime here to ask Jay any question that you have related to growing your business, marketing your business, competition, whatever it would like. Who'd like to go first? Yes.
I was very impressed with the way your demeanor and the way you spoke. And I think a lot of us are, I'm sitting here going, I need to figure out how to say that. What do I say to the clients? Where can we learn how to speak like that?
There's 3 or 4 people.
Let me repeat her question just for the video. So she
Okay.
said she really appreciated your demeanor. She appreciated the way that the confidence in which you spoke and you presented yourself. And you said she was asking, how do you, or where can you go to find some place to learn, how to be able to communicate like that? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yes.
And those words, kind of examples of those.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Let me give you an unusual, integrated, multifaceted answer. The first place you go is within. You have to believe in yourself.
Within yourself.
I'm not trying to bullshit. I've really done all this, so it's not terribly hard to articulate things that you've actually done. And you have to appreciate, we don't appreciate ourselves. And do you ever go to, when I go to a cocktail party, I'm fascinated with everybody else. And they're all fascinated with me. So you have to appreciate whether or not, and now we look at, I'm going to do something totally different, and because I got like 9 million things we've done. With your permission, I'm going to answer you, but before I answer you, I'm going to divert and share with you a short distillation of a module that I think will help all of you. May I?
Please.
Okay. So a couple years ago, I got really fascinated with the concept of greatness. And I thought, okay, there's no one alive, really, who inherently isn't eager, isn't aspiring, isn't programmed in their DNA to be great. Not just great in business, great as a human being, great as a father, mother, husband, lover, contributor to society, whatever it is. And yet, 2%, 1% ever achieve that? And I started being obsessed with why. And I reduced it down to like 4 or 5 elements. And you can embrace my thesis or your hypothesis, or you can reject it. I'm just here visiting, and I got no other agenda. So my belief is, first, almost nobody knows what greatness is supposed to look like in 3 different ways. Here, first of all, how you think, how you act, how you communicate. Oh, by the way, back to excuse me on this, back to preeminence. It's not an ADD moment. But one of the keys to preeminence, and you guys already have it licked because you call them clients, but most people call them customers. And if you're going to be preeminent, you're going to be their most trusted advisor, and you call them a customer, it's the most ludicrous concession of mediocrity you can make, because if you look at Webster's dictionary, it's somebody who basically buys a generic product or service. A client is somebody under the care, the well-being, the responsibility. So you got to look at everybody as a client, but there's 4 kinds of clients you have: the ones that pay you and the ones you pay. You've got to be committed to the betterment, to the growth, to the development, to the enrichment of everybody who's part of your ecosystem, including your own advisors back at the ranch. What was I talking about before I got sidelined?
Her question.
Okay, so, most people don't have a clue
About greatness.
about what it's supposed to feel like, what it's supposed to, like the different flow of energy and output, and the, what's the word I want to use? The worldview that you need to instill, install, and explain. That's one. Most of them don't know how to judge whether it's coming through on, to the recipient. And there's different recipients, because greatness starts by leveraging, the resources of others. And others are your team, your media. See, what I stand for is highest and best use theory, getting the absolute most you can, from every effort, every time, every dollar, every access, every collaboration, but not in a usurious way, but in a very collaborative and different way. One of my clients says you're either a multiplier or a diminisher in your business. That's another side. So if you don't know what it's supposed to feel like or be expressed like, not just in words, but actions, thoughts, connections, or how to see if it's resonating, it's pretty hard to do that. Second, if you sort of get a feel for that, now you got to figure if, and by the way, you have to judge that, in my opinion, in every aspect of your life, because greatness can be, there's probably 20 dimensions. Your relationships with your loved ones, your success in business, your relationship with your staff, your financial, anything else, and you got to decide which ones you want your greatness to be achieved in first, because you can't do them all concurrently or you go crazy, and some of them might be more important than even the professional, but you figure that out. Now, the first thing you figured out is at least what it's supposed to look like. Now, here's where you are in these things. Here's where you want to be. If you try to be a pole vaulter, it's very difficult. And you probably won't get over the bar. But there's many different paths to get there, and you got to find the path that is the most, not rapid, although that would be nice, but the most result certain for you. And you can't find, like one of the things that I learned when I learned optimization years ago, you cannot optimize until you've first identified not all, but the majority of paths, of options, of opportunities, of possibilities, of methodology, whatever it is to get there. So you're here, you want to be here. Everybody wants to be there, whether you acknowledge it or not. I'm telling you, I'm showing you the part of preeminence. It's putting in words what you want no one's ever said. Next, and this is very, very sad, but it probably prevails in almost every business owner, and you're an entrepreneur, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. If you get that far, you figure out what greatness looks like. You figure out the best path or paths to get it in whatever elements of your life. All of you, I presume, either have or they've grown children, grandchildren, or you certainly have friends that have children. And if you've ever watched them when they were young learn how to walk or talk or eat or poopy or ride a bike, they weren't very good the first time they did it. It was like, spoon in the eye, poop on the floor, boom on, after walk, and what happens with adults worse than children is when we, particularly if we're, prominent, prestigious, competent attorneys in our profession, and we endeavor to do anything out of our comfort zone and we don't do it well, what do? We retreat and lock it away because we don't want to visit that bad feeling. And you got to be able to break through it. And that's why
it's so interesting because the legal industry, you guys have a real issue as business owners versus lawyers. It's almost like you're polar opposites, right? To be a lawyer, it's all about you're taught to what? Mitigate, manage risk, and eliminate it whenever possible, right? So it's like you want to turn around and run the other way. But as business owners, you almost have to embrace a level of risk to get from here to where you want to go.
And I would argue, no interruption, that it's much riskier to live a life of mediocrity and not even know it than it is to live it full out. And when you realize what's possible from time, effort, and I could go into all kinds of elements because I was thinking that just changing the way you answer the phone, changing the way you communicate, all those things have, I've studied variability, and it's amazing the differential in doing all kinds of things differently, but it's exhilarating. I mean, hopefully, I'm very authentic, I think, and I should evoke an aura to you of, you may not like me, but you can tell that I'm not your typical person. And I would probably come across in a very compelling way because I have not just learned, I'm living these elements, and it's a very powerful force that differentiates and distinguishes you from everyone, and it becomes automatic and it becomes natural. Now, so when you get to that third step and you fail, you need someone. It can be a colleague, can be a coach, can be somebody like, and it's not an ad for Stephen, but it's somebody to hold you accountable and believe in you at that point more than you even believe in yourself, and hold you to a higher standard. There was a very, he's still alive, a very prominent business coach, and his name was Bob Proctor, and he had a quote that most people struggle in business, and I don't know if it's going to be any different with all of you because you're in this room, and they silently verbalize and haunt themselves with verbiage to the extent of, am I really worthy of this goal? Can I keep this independent practice going? Can I really, can I get it to 500,000 income so I can put my kids through college and put some money away because I can't sell it for a penny? And you're always in that fear mode, not even recognized or acknowledged. And he said, which is quite profound, when you realize how much more is possible from the effort, the time, the interaction, the people, the processes, the right question to ask is not, am I worthy of this goal, but is this goal worthy of me? And I'm not trying to be rah-rah motivation. I'm not a motivator. I'm just dealing with empirically valid reality. Now, back to your question. There are a number of answers. Number one is you got to look inside. You got to believe in yourself, or the words will never be authentic. They will always sound like a scripted, robotical, inauthentic, superficial, patronizing, panderizing crock of bull. However, there's a great, and I can't remember, who knows the story of Pericles and Demosthenes? Who knows it? Which one was the orator? Okay, so quick story, and I'm not trying to
And then
waste.
we'll take the next question.
I don't have to tell a story. I don't have to tell.
Well, let's take the next question. I want to
Okay.
make sure we have at least a couple people.
Well, there's one more
who-
point. There are two people.
Okay.
Okay. There's a woman named Sally Hogshead. It's a weird name, but she's the specialist, and she's done research analysis on being fascinating. And by being fascinating, she's broken it to really protocols, systems, methodologies, and she's proven that fascinating people get more results, more sales, faster buy-in, more loyalty. There's a book she wrote. She's got a website. There's another woman named Rebecca LeBlanc who is a specialist in teaching you to be more authoritative. I would read the two books Stephen M.R. Covey and Greg Link wrote on trust building. One's called The Speed of Trust. The other is called Smart Trust. They found that most people who think they're trustworthy in the eyes of their market aren't, and they've isolated methodology, and they've proven it can make you 300% more impactful, successful, and profitable. Okay.
Excellent, good. Yes.
So, the legal field, or at least the training for me in Los Angeles, has always been in the English-speaking culture, and
Okay.
schools and everything, and I was brought up Spanish-speaking Latino here in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So now I'm embarking on how do we market to the Spanish market, in Southern California, and that's something that, is kind of like you're splitting your brain a little bit.
Sure.
but-
So the question is, how do you market to the Spanish-speaking market? He's here in LA, but certainly that would be
Everywhere, yeah.
in
Yeah.
different places.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, you're asking a question out of context for me. What are you marketing?
Legal services.
But I mean, is it general?
Me, in other words, but
I mean, are you everything? Are you vertical?
real estate,
Okay.
real estate transactions,
But okay, so let's take it more granularly. Are you real estate that's commercial or is it residential?
both, but I do more commercial.
Okay, so there's two answers, and this is something I wanted to share before I left anyhow. Much of my work has been shifting people's focus from doing it yourself to harnessing and and leveraging up other people's, we call it OPR, other people's resources. But if you think about the market you want, you can spend a lot of money on advertising, you spend a lot of money on all kinds of things, or you can make a comprehensive identification of who either company, service, organization, media, influencers who are not competitive already have spent years and countless dollars establishing goodwill trust, and you can tap into that. And if you can't compensate them legally, there are other things that you can legally do. But almost every client I have ever worked with, the first thing we did was ask, who's already got the clients we want from another purpose? Then we'd say, who's got the clients we want right before, at the same time concurrently, or after they do what we want them to do? And when you ask that question, you identify more. Like when I did seminars, I did $250 million, and that is $250 million. I was younger, and I spent a few $100,000 over the whole total, basically just on food and things for people, because I went to every, Success Magazine was a partner. All the financial newsletters were partners. The in-flight magazines were partners. Tony Robbins was a partner, and by partner, I didn't pay him anything except on the outside. You can't pay, but you got to find a different format or structure. You can, but it's finding who already has. That's the first thing. Second, it's if you want to be great in this, and I think you alluded to it, create a book and have that book distributed to the market you want by somebody they trust. Pay for the book, have it sent out, number one. Number two is offer to fund activities for other people that have the access to these influential people, or the influencers of these people, and do things. I'll give you an example. I've done so many real estate people so often in my life. We did something hilarious. I used to do high performance real estate, but residential. When anybody moved, didn't matter whether it was our client or the others, we would fund a going away party for them, and we would go to the whole neighborhood. We'd be there. We would fund a welcome to the neighborhood for them, and if the corresponding client's realtor didn't do anything like that, which most didn't, we do it for them too. And there's all kinds of cool things you can do that are just so obvious, but and then differentiating yourself. But when I got started, here's what I did. I had made a lot of money for a couple of people, but I wasn't that well known. And I went to Nightingale Conant at the time. This is years ago. They were the #1 publisher of audio material in the genre, and they had 200 of the top business and sales and management gurus, everyone from back then, Tom Peters to to everybody as their clients. And I said, I want to buy each one. We had a book we wrote. It was very expensive. We sent them the book, and we bought. They were a $400 book, and I needed two. And I said, I want to buy $80,000 worth of books for your people. Cost me a few dollars, and I want to buy each one of them 2 hours of my time, and I want nothing in return except if they find my ideas viable, valuable, and hopefully result producing, that they would entertain giving me an endorsement, and if they wanted, let me have that endorsement used to their sphere of influence. And I worked for 2 months and didn't make a dime, and worked my ass off and ended up with 80 endorsements. Lots of ways to do it, but everyone, this is hilarious.
Here's the good news for you guys. The legal industry is like a big black hole when it comes to creativity and marketing. You guys look at all of your competitors and you do exactly the same thing. There's a lot of copycat marketing. You know what I'm talking about, right? All the advertisements, they look the same. All the websites, they look the same. They all have the scales of justice in the upper right-hand corner, right? Or some angry-looking attorney on the courthouse steps, right? There is so much copycat marketing out there, it's ridiculous. So if you're willing to kind of open up your mind a little bit and think creatively. Now, obviously, you have ethical constraints, right? You can't pay non-attorneys and things like that for referral fees, but you can certainly do creative things that are certainly within your ethical boundaries. And if you're willing to be creative, you can have a lot more fun and make a lot more money and attract a lot more referrals than your competition. But if you're only stuck in a rut that the entire legal industry has been in for the last, say 30 years, right, then you're only going to get the same results as everybody else. I think we have time for maybe one more question. Yes?
So go back to work Monday morning, go to our office. What is something very practical that we can implement right away that you think we're probably not doing that would help us either achieve or communicate this trusted advisor kind of status?
So let me repeat. So what's one thing that you can hit the ground running on Monday morning that would be very practical to help you increase your level of trusted advisor status? Is that fair to say? Yes. Okay.
Can I amend it? If you ask me what's one thing you can do Tuesday morning is, because I can't get it to you till Monday morning, but Monday morning I would take 2 or 3 hours and read the materials I'll give you on preeminence.
That's
and
very
then
gracious.
I would
Very gracious.
isolate whichever one of those elements was most needed, and then I would try it and see what happens.
Is that a fair answer?
Yeah.
Yes?
Okay.
Yes?
I got to go.
Thank you so much.
You're
This has been
welcome.
helpful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I hope it was okay.
Thank you so much.